Okay, so welcome also from me. My name is Christian. I'm the founder and CEO of the Capptoo group. And the next 2 days actually, it's all about real talk about this customer experience and AI. That's why we're here. But there's also a lot of time to network, to co-work, to check your emails. There's just time to hang out. First and foremost, we want you to enjoy the event. Pick the sessions you like, skip the ones you don't, just have fun and have a good day as you please. What Tanya just said before, we started the company actually started thinking about to build our own company in 2015. And 1.5 years later, we started and we quickly gained important lighthouse customers, as we call them. They were not from the pharma industry. There was a company called Zweifel Chips, and the Assay insurance broker. They were our very first customers. But then in 2018, we were asked to pitch for that project Tanya mentioned, DoCare. It was a patient HCP website, and back then we had zero experience in pharma. We had no references at all. So for us, it was a miracle that we made it into on the shortlist. But we learned then that those brilliant marketeers of that company, they wanted to have a set of new fresh eyes, someone that looks at the challenge in a different way. So we then realized that project, we were selected, and then because when you're new with a new company and you do new projects in a new industry, you have to over-deliver all the time. You have to deliver the highest quality ever. So we did invest there 3-4 times the amount of number of hours that we got paid for. But that led to a very successful project. That successful project led to the next one, to the next therapeutic area. I think we started in oncology or vaccines, and then to the next pharma company, to the next market. And today we are doing business in 70 markets around the globe. We started there, then we continued in 2020, I think it was. We did around 20 projects in pharma. Then 2021, that was the first time we hit the 50 project number. And then since 22, we run more than 100 projects in the life science industry every single year. And we do around 30 of them, they're running in parallel. We started with projects that could be just make a PowerPoint presentation nice. But then we had projects that were running for years. So today we are around 100 experts in digital marketing in pharma, and voice of customer experts. I'll talk a little bit more about this. And our teams are in around 13, 14 countries, crossing multiple time zones. Now, a lot of you are new to us. Of course, there are customers from us here, most of them from the pharma industry, but there's also some non-pharma people in here. So I want to quickly tell you what we do. Usually at this point, a company has such an event, they will tell you now all the details about the products and services. They shower you with lots of use cases and stories they want you to know. We take a different approach. We focus today especially on product launches. But in a nutshell, that's really important to understand what Screver is and Capptoo is. Screver is a feedback management, CX, customer experience platform that we have developed in-house over the last 6 years. And Screver turns feedback into tangible actions or into real change in companies, not just in numbers and dashboards. I'll talk more about this later. And Capptoo, on the other hand, is creative strategy in action. That sounds a bit buzzwordy, but you'll see in a moment what I mean. So, I want to talk about product launches today because we believe that the pharma industry, they invest, of course, a lot of time and effort and money into the R&D process. And they are very rigorous, very evidence-driven, And then at one point, it goes to the market access teams, it comes to commercial teams, and sometimes what follows then, the product launch itself, may have potential to be improved. in some cases. So we want to talk about this today, how we see product launches. I think we can do better there. But first, look at some facts and statistics when it comes to the product launch challenge. As IQVIA and McKinsey stated, and you surely know those numbers, or most of you know those numbers, only around 10 to 15% of the drug launches are seen to be truly successful, meaning they were able to hit the market expectations, the sales targets. Likewise, Evaluate Pharma and IQVIA found that 80% of the launches fell short of what expected, meaning the revenue goals or the market shares they wanted to gain, they were set out to gain in the first 2 years, they didn't achieve. And there's a 2-year post-launch drop-off. Just 5% of primary care and 8% of specialty care drug launches are still performing well and performing at top level 2 years after they were brought to markets in global economies. And they lose momentum very quickly. And then almost naturally, I guess, McKinsey and IQVIA, they conclude that missing first-year targets, it's really hard to recoup. If you do bad in the first year, you probably are not able then to make it up in the long run. So therefore, it's good that we look at these topics. The issue, though, is not the product. The issue is, as we see this, the execution of the product launch. Research shows that weak customer engagement, poor HCP understanding, and lack of diversification cause more failure than the actual clinical performance of the drug. And finally, there is the launch cliff. Have you ever heard of the launch cliff? Surely you have. So even when a drug launch is executed very well, they hit that launch cliff 6 to 12 months or 6 to 8 months after the launch, meaning the performance drop sharply and they struggle to keep up the momentum. So all in all, I think when we look at those stats, we can conclude that the pharma industry has a serious challenge when it comes to the product launch, not because of the product itself, but because the launches are planned and sometimes not so well planned and executed. And that is where Capptoo, remember creative strategy in action, as I said before, and Screver, turning feedback into action, comes into place. So what we do is, when it comes to product launches, we map critical touch points and feedback loops throughout the patient journey, from awareness to activation to long-term retention. In other words, and this is important, we identify the critical touch points where patients' experience really matters, like activation, like access to the drug, like education or monitoring, and we bring continuous feedback through our voice of customer platform, the Screver part I mentioned before, to measure what's working and what's not working. And of course, it's not about just collecting the data. It's about understanding friction, it's about improving support programs and making sure the patients stay engaged and adherent. And our goal thereby is very simple. If we want to achieve better outcome for the patients, that will yield naturally better outcome in terms of revenue and market share for the business. Then how we do that is lots of dots, but what we have here on the left, we have the channels. We looked at the journey before. Now we just mapped it in a different way. What you see is a mix of human, digital, and hybrid interactions, from emails to chat to print media to calls to face-to-face meetings to call center. But the truth is, this is all extremely messy. Not every channel performs well. Not every message is really, really relevant for the HCP or the patient or for the nurse. And very few teams actually have visibility in what works and what doesn't. And that's why we are here. We support our companies in mapping the actual impact of each of those channels to identify gaps and making sure that time and budget is spent wisely. For marketeers, that means in general smarter content choices, it means better orchestration of the campaigns, it means faster insights. And for the leadership, it means that we know where to invest our money and time, where the patient activation actually works very well. And of course, we only running surveys and feedback and obtaining feedbacks at the different touch points and channel, that's not sufficient. We have to still then make sure we improve all these KPIs, meaning if we improve the onboarding part of the patients, if we improve the Net Promoter Score results, if we improve the customer effort scores, or we minimizing the drop-off rate through smart campaigns and with obtaining feedback at relevant touch points, that naturally leads to these better business results and higher sales, or it should at least. So, how do we do this? How do our projects usually start? They usually start with a design thinking workshops, where we have how might be questions, where we come together with the customer and we ideate around the real challenges. This is, by the way, I'm not sure if you ever heard of the Oncology Compass. That was a workshop 4 years ago that I was running at MSD, and out of there came that product, that platform for oncology, the Oncology Compass platform in collaboration with Merck. We developed that platform for oncologists. So I'm going to talk a bit more about this afternoon about it. So design thinking workshops, really important to have an understanding of what the problem is, to find solutions to those problems. And then usually and quite often we then run local or global awareness campaigns. And I'll give you one example. You see here on the right-hand side, we run a HPV campaign, and there was on a global level, we created 16 to 18 different assets. An asset was a landing page, actually it was 8 landing pages, then movies, any kind of visuals and copy. So we created all these assets, and then we localized them into the different languages and jurisdictions and countries. And in total, we ended up with 3,700 different assets. And from the idea, from thinking about the assets of the campaign, to designing them, to developing the assets, and get them PromoMats approved, it took us less than 8 weeks. So 3,700 assets in less than 8 weeks getting PromoMats approved. That you can only do if you use smart technologies, and of course, if you get medical legal on board from the get-go. And you should execute those projects in a natural way. And also, the results were very good. Because we always do A/B testing. We don't execute before we don't test thoroughly what really works. In the first 3 months, I hope I have those numbers correct, but I'm pretty sure, 77 million people have seen the ad. And 250,000 people came to the landing page. And on that landing page, they took a test, HPV test. There were multiple questions within Screver, our platform, on the landing page. They answered those questions, and then they saw whether what they should do. So we created the awareness, and with a project we're doing right now for lung check or melanoma, we even integrated. Then we reach out to them online on social media. We get the audience where they think they could do the check. We got them on a landing page. They do the melanoma test, and then through OneDoc integration, they can book a doctor appointment. So these are how we then activate those product launches or part of the product launch. And actually, with this campaign, we always think outside the box. It is outside the box. Sometimes we're a bit too crazy, sometimes not. But in here, we tested Tinder. So there were 4 different cohorts, and one cohort, young females, and they were very, especially, I don't know why, but especially in Scandinavia, Tinder performed extremely well in terms of conversion. Then we've done, over the last 5 years, we conducted more than 300 e-details. And of course, we test them, and we make sure that the message gets really across, that the EDAs are really well built and well designed, so that the MSL and the sales rep have the best possible information at hand when they talk to the physician or to the patient, physician or the nurses. Besides that, that's more technical now, but we also have a lot of my colleagues, they're Viva experts and Salesforce Marketing Cloud experts. So whether you do a rep-enabled email or when you do broadcast emails, and we are by no means saying you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do them, but we have to make sure we reach the HCP how he wants to be reached, not how we think he wants to be reached. So these are topics that are very dear to us. They're absolutely needed when we come to the channel and touch points. And all this is developed in-house. So there's no, we outsourcing it to some other people, some around the world that we don't know because they're cheaper. It's all us. Of course, that's not wholly true. We have also external medical writers in multiple languages. So that's us. And so in a nutshell, we think that product launches, and there are more and more products coming on the market as we speak at the moment. And I think there should not be any kind of product launch that, of course, is not well thought through. Of course, we need to have a very good plan for that, but there should not be a product launch with a stellar voice of customer, voice of HCP, voice of patient program underneath, where we, at every relevant touch point, in any phase of the patient journey, obtain valuable insights, and then we do something with those insights in order to improve the patient journey. Does that make sense? Oh, that's good. Well, that's it. There was thanks a lot for listening, and I hope we can talk about this later on in the breaks.